Ryan here at setthepacetriathlon.com. Welcome to the video this time in the quick tips. Triathlon, we're going to talk about planning your training around your schedule. The biggest question that always comes up is you can find the best plan in the world, but if it doesn't fit your schedule, it's not really be all that helpful to you. So, a couple of quick tips. You got any questions, put them in the comments on Facebook, YouTube. I get notifications. I'll come back and answer those on the back end. If you're seeing it now, sit back and relax. We'll jam through these tips real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. So, number one, get organized. Get a planner. I've got my planner right here. It has all my stuff in here. I've got planners for days. Over here in my little office area, I've got another planner backing up this planner. So when I'm done with this one, I just move on to the next planner. So there's no layoff in time because I have to write everything down. But as you'll see in point number two, I also use apps. I have an Outlook app because I've got work schedule. I got my wife's work schedule. I got my kids' schedules on there, all three of them. I got my schedule on there. I got my work schedule, personal schedule, training schedule. I've got it all mapped out because when you've got that many people going on and that many jobs and that many things to keep track of, you've got to make sure that you stay on top of things. So if you're not organized, this stuff will just fall through the cracks. You'll be running around with your hair on fire because you can't seem to find enough time in the day to get everything done, and nothing gets done. You get frustrated. You go to bed and you rinse and repeat and do it the next day. So get organized, get a planner, and get on top of stuff. We already went number two there. Number three, add critical important activities mapped out over your entire training cycle. For me, I already know my kids' soccer schedule. I already know their basketball schedules. I already know their swim schedules. From here until probably the end of the summer and time of this recording, we're in February. So I make sure to write all this stuff down because those are kind of the big chunk things. Game times, practice times for them. And that pretty much dictates, it says, hey, guess what? Most of the evenings are going to be taken up with kids' activities most weekends. If you're going to do a long ride or run and your kid has a 9 a.m. soccer game on Saturday, maybe it's best to move that to Sunday and kind of make a little less friction in the world. Or maybe you're going to have to get up a little bit earlier to get that training in on the weekend that you thought you were going to have the extra time for. So make sure that you're putting in the big activities, like if your spouse is going out of town for work. Once in a while, my wife does travel for work, or if I'm going out of town, or I've got something going on, or I'm going to be out of town for something, a family event, family reunion, vacation, whatever. Put it on the calendar because then when you apply your training plan, you look to see where you've got mismatches, where you need to be creative in your schedule. So make sure you got critical and important things you know about mapped out, even at 6-7 months down the road. Make sure you got on your. That's why I like the digital training or digital planner, something like Outlook. I use it with my Hotmail. I know old school, but I've got it on there. I can put everything in there, and I could look months ahead. My planner usually goes to 1 to 2 months ahead, and then digital I go 6 to 7 months ahead just to make sure I know what's going on. Number four, add in the maybes, even if you don't think. Maybe you think that your spouse may or may not go out of town for work. Add it in there anyway, just so it's a placeholder. You look and be like, well, they may or may not be here, but I'm not going to count on them being here, and I'm going to shuffle my workout plan accordingly. Or maybe your kid is playing in the high school basketball team, and they're going to head to sub-state, but you don't know if they're going to make it on past that first round. Well, go ahead and block it all out, just in case it does happen, so you're not caught off guard at the last minute, because we definitely don't want to miss those good highlights in our kids' lives. Don't want to miss state or sub-state or whatever they're going to for whatever sport, or if they're going to having a orchestra concert or something like that, and they're competing for something, and that you don't know what time it's going to happen during the Saturday, but you want to be there. Got to make sure that you have these plans in there, even if it's a maybe. Put it in there. Number five, find your training plan, paper or online. So again, I'm a coach, so I do these tips. I've got a lot of plans and training peaks, but if training peaks, if digital's not your thing, then map it out. Even if it's in a planner, get a separate planner to map out your training for 6 months ahead or something like that, 4 months ahead. Get a weekly planner so that way you can put in, the big chunks, big blocks, and see where really you're going to do your 100-mile rides, 20-mile runs, and that type of thing to see how that matches up to the schedule of your family and everybody else. So make sure that you've got a good, solid training plan to compare to your life schedule to see where things line up or don't line up. Number six, map out the big training days in your life cycle. So again, that's where these two combine. So training plan, life plan, put them together, see where they line up, where they collide, where you've got to go through and get creative. Number seven, get creative. So maybe it's a Saturday ride, but your kids have an activity or your spouse is out of town that weekend and you're having to watch the kids and you've got nobody, no backup or anything like that, and it's just not a wise move to disappear for 6 hours on a bike ride. Maybe 2 months down the road, you could plan a day off from work. So maybe Friday, you could get that ride done, take the day off from work, and then you're home all weekend. You've got your workouts taken care of. You're covered for your spouse while they're out of town and you have to pick up extra duties around the house. Hopefully problem solved. But sometimes you have to get a little creative. Maybe you have to do the long stuff, map it out into the week to just make it happen. Maybe sometimes a long run can happen on a Friday. Do part of it in the morning, part of it over lunch, or maybe part of it after work. Nothing's going on. And then the weekend is taken up with whatever you got going on. So got to be creative. Number 8, a lot of athletes are pinned in with pool time. So that's an unfortunate part of it. I map out my pool swimming times, especially during the winter. I'm kind of tied to my pool that I use. When the summer comes around, I've got a pool in my neighborhood that actually has lap lanes on it, so I can hit it in the morning. So I've got a little bit more flexibility in my pool swimming schedule, but I map the pool times out, especially it changes when school's out and they do extra activities. So then I'm limited on my lap swimming times, but make sure that you map those out. You know those in advance. You know when school's going to be out and when your pool times are going to change. Try to get in with your pool, whatever one you're using, to see when they're going to change hours. Usually it's posted in the yearly schedule. These are the days that we have out of school pool swimming, and they take away the lap lanes or something like that. So don't be surprised when you show up like, oh man, I had this all mapped out. This just totally ruins my day. I showed up and the lap lanes are closed for the day. So make sure that you know your pool swim time schedule, because usually that is going to be a hard, fast, set time in your training block that it has to happen at this time. It's not going to happen. Number 8. Communication will be key. So you've got this mapped out. Hopefully you've got buy-in from the family. You're doing this race in the first place, and you need to be gone for a couple hours on a Saturday or Friday or Sunday or whatever to do this long training day. So make sure you're communicating, especially if it's going to be advanced, especially if your significant other, your spouse, your kids, or something big going on. There's a graduation or something like that. Make sure that your communication to say, hey, I know we've got this big thing going on, and I'm going to rearrange my training schedule to kind of work around this. Is that going to be a problem? Make sure you're communicating, because the last thing you want to do is just disappear. People are counting on you, and then there's people mad at you, and it just comes a huge friction point. You don't want to do that. Make sure you're talking well in advance so it's not a surprise to anybody. So communication. Number 10, be real. Sometimes maybe it just doesn't work. You've only got a 4-hour window to do a 6-hour ride, that long training week. And that's what you do. Maybe do 4 hours on one day and 2 hours on the next day and make it happen. So sometimes you just have to be realistic with how this training is, because for the most of us, going out there and training and doing these races is more of a hobby and an interest. It's not a lifetime income source to where we're going to win the race and we're going to have that, or we're getting sponsors are out there. We're not professionals out there for the majority of us. So be realistic in the fact that if you're going to have to change your training or something like that, sometimes the training is going to have to take the bite, and it's going to have to go off to the wayside. So be real sometimes. Number 11, some days you may have a bike and a run, not meant as a break, but makes a break. So this is kind of a secret little sauce I added for my athletes. So maybe there's an easy ride and a hard run, or there's a hard ride and an easy run. I try to make those two kind of hit on the same day, so you're not having a hard bike and a hard run. So maybe there's an opportunity where you can make it a brick. So you do an easy 60-minute ride in the trainer, don't do a cool down, go over there and do your run, don't have to have a warm up, and then you do your cool down for your run. So maybe a 2-hour combined total is changed into an hour and a half, hour 45. So you save a little bit of time. Maybe you get all that done before you go to work, and you save some time and you're done with the workouts. You can do them all in the morning, sometimes in the evening if that's the way it works out too. So just keep that in mind. There's ways to be creative on how you do the workout, so you kind of truncate how much time it actually takes to get those workouts done. Number 12, look where you spend your time. Do a little bit of time analysis. If you get to the end of the week, you're like, oh man, I got nothing. I got no time, and I can't get all these workouts in. I got so much going on. But if you do a time analysis, you kind of find the little times where you spent surfing your phone, find the time you spent watching Walking Dead or whatever YouTube shows or Netflix series you binge watched. Like, oh, I spent an hour and a half this one night, watching the KU basketball game. Whereas if you're sitting on the couch watching a game, maybe you could have spent that time with your trainer watching the game. Just be mindful and be real with yourself of where you're spending your time, and maybe where course, there's some trade-offs that can be done where you're going to have to maybe DVR some shows and watch them later. And everything's streaming these days, so you can pick and choose whatever you watch these shows. So they are not the priority. If your workout and your race is a priority, then you can go back and watch these things later whenever you got some downtime and it's not as impactful to your schedule. So keep that in mind. Let's be real out there. So that wraps up the quick tips talking about how to get your training in around your schedule. So hopefully some of these kind of hit home for you to help you out. Watch on Facebook and help you. Give a like. Same thing on YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. Hit the bell notification for future tips, future videos on other race courses and that type of thing. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Facebook, YouTube. I get notifications. I'll hit those. I'll answer any questions you might have in there. Or if it didn't help you out, still put a comment in there. Let me know what I could have done better to help you out, because I'll make these videos for you guys. Hopefully to help you out. And that's the whole purpose of them. So with that, I'm going to wish you happy training out there. This ends the video, and we'll see you in the next video.